Hello and welcome to the Second Tier Podcast. I'm Ryan Dilks and we're joined today by a true championship legend. He's got 436 second tier appearances to his name, 3 promotions to the Premier League over a 22-year career. He's even got 206 Premier League appearances under his belt as well. It's former Watford, West Brom, Bolton and Birmingham defender Paul Robinson. Paul, how are we?
How are we doing, Ryan? Yeah, I'm all good, thank you.
Good stuff. Good stuff. I mean, you've had such a long and eventful career that I'm afraid this is going to have to be a bit of a whistle-stop tour of your career. So I apologise in advance to anyone who's a supporter of a club you've played for who thinks we didn't cover their club enough. There's just so much we need to cover. So we may as well kick things off right at the start, because you started your career at Watford, where you're from, and your professional debut came against Luton. Of all teams, when you were 17, you came on as a second-minute sub, which is it's a bit of a baptism of fire, isn't it?
It is when you're only 17, yeah, and it's your debut as well at the same time. So, really good memories for me. Obviously, wasn't nervous at all. I was more excited and couldn't wait to get involved, but not expecting to get on after 2 minutes. That was the surprise for me. But again, when you get on that early, you have no time to think. So you just go straight into it, ready to go. Yeah.
Well, I imagine. But was it a bit of a feisty affair?
Well, they are, because it's your local rivals. So you know for a fact when you go into them games, it's going to be fiery. There's going to be challenges flying in. There's going to be a lot of sledging, as you'd say in cricket, towards each other and giving each other a bit of banter. But no, I mean, for me, it was a great wake-up call from such a young age to what professional football was all about.
Yeah, well, I can imagine 17 and going into that kind of environment just seems mad to me. I mean, I'd be intimidated now and I'm 29. So when you were kind of in the first team fold of things, I mean, playing at that age, 17, and playing first team football, was there kind of an initiation kind of thing going on there with the senior players?
Oh yeah, the initiation stuff with the senior pros there was always to keep you on your toes, because as a young lad they never wanted you to get above yourself or a little bit big-headed. So there was always stuff that they'll do if you went over the line and you pushed the boundaries. Obviously, Andy Hesson-Tyler was my boot boy, so if I messed up on his boots, there was always a punishment that he'd give me, which would be probably going in a cold bath for 2 minutes or getting tied to the goalposts at Vicarage Road with just my pants on. So things like that, yeah. Or you'd go into a dark room and get beaten up, or the balls kicked at you. So yeah, you was always kept on your toes at a young age. But for me, it was a great upbringing and a life lesson of when never to cross the line with senior pros.
It's a different time, isn't it?
Yeah, just a bit now. You're not allowed to say too much now to certain players because they get a little bit offended by it. So yeah, football's changed a lot.
Well, you can say that again. I mean, when you were at Watford, it was Graham Taylor who returned for his third spell at the club. Of course, massive Watford legend. How much of an influence did he have on your whole career?
Yeah. Well, obviously, he had the start of my career was fantastic for me to learn off the England manager, a Watford legend in his right of what he did for the football club. Kenny Jackett as well, got to mention. Kenny was my youth team manager at the time, so him and Graham were the ones who were really pushing me on to make it in the first team and to drive me to the levels that I needed to as a professional. But yeah, Graham was my mentor. He was someone that I always looked up to with respect, someone I could always go and speak to about footballing issues, of how I could improve and how I could develop my game to being the player that I was. And also along, like again with Kenny as well, I do a lot of work with Kenny Jackett on the grass, where he'd help me positionally because we were both left backs. So he would guide me in that position. So yeah, I had great mentors from such a young age growing up.
Yeah, well, obviously you're a coach now. Do you think of some of the stuff that Graham Taylor taught you when you were such a youngster and put that into your coaching now?
Yeah, you do, because for me, you've got to have a good relationship with your players. So you've got to understand how they're thinking sometimes, even off the field stuff. Now you've got to ask questions to check in to make sure that our families, like the young lads who have families nowadays. So you've always got to be forward thinking with how the game's evolving. And yeah, I learned a lot of Graham of how to have that man management skill about me, to have respect for the player you're working with. Is you know that they're going to make mistakes, but it's how can we keep improving to cutting the mistakes to find margins. So yeah, I learnt a lot off Graham with how I needed to communicate to players.
Yeah, what do you make of what's going on at Watford now? Because they're very much a mid-table championship club now, despite only being in the Premier League a matter of a couple of years ago. They seem to be trying to get away from the whole hiring and firing thing, don't they? But they're struggling a bit, aren't they?
Yeah, they've been up and down. It's consistency and stability now for Watford. It's the owner here has to look at what direction does he want the club to go in, and the manager that he's got there at the moment, Ishmael, he's got to give him time, and he's got to give him the funds in January to bring in his own players, because it's still not his team. It's still a team of different managers that have been there before. So whether he's going to get that back in January will be something to watch out for. But yeah, at the moment they're very inconsistent with their performances, and they've just got to try and find that right balance, and hopefully under Ishmael, and they give him time, he can find that, where he had great success at Barnsley. Yes, obviously he had a little bit of a disappointment time at West Brom, but now at Watford he's got the opportunity to prove a point, and to hopefully get the right team that he needs to take the club forward.
And they've got some bloody good players at Watford as well, haven't they? So the fact that they're just, a mid-table championship side now, who have an outside chance of getting to the top six, it's quite the downfall in the space of a couple of years, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, they've got a great selection of players there. They've got a very good squad, but they, like you say before, they've always had very good squads. It's just trying to find the balance of the team. The team's obviously always been a little bit indifferent with certain players playing in different formations, or players playing out of position. But now it looks like Ishmael wants a certain way of playing. He wants the team set up how he wants it set up. And now he's just got to find that right balance of the right players being in their own positions, and playing to their full ability of what we know that they can do.
Well, you left Watford in 2003 after several years at the club to go to West Brom. Why did you decide to leave Watford?
Because the club was going into administration, so I really didn't have a choice. I was just sitting at home on a Sunday evening. We just moved into our new house with my wife and my newly born first child. And 3 months into that, we got told that we had to move on, and West Brom had come in and put an offer in. I remember getting a phone call from the director of football at the time, Terry Byrne, and he just said to me, he said, "Look, Robbo," he said, "unfortunately, we've got to sell you. So you've got permission to go and talk to West Brom tomorrow. Hopefully everything gets sorted out, and you'll go and play for them next Saturday in their first league match." So yeah, I mean, as a player living and born and bred in Watford, you've got a young family you've just started. We've just bought a new house, and both our parents were in and around the area. Yeah, we was in shock, but I totally understood it was the right time for me to move on, and understand that the club could really be in a situation that I didn't want it to be in, because it was my club and where I was from. So yeah, I drove up the M40 on the Monday morning, and when I met Gary Megson at the Hawthorns on Monday mid-afternoon for a chat, and to see where the club was going. And from then on, really, it was, right, this is a bit of me and this is my next challenge. So yeah, I want to grab it with both hands. So that's really how it sort of happened in that short space of time.
Yeah, well, things went very well at West Brom, didn't they? In your first season under Gary Megson, you won promotion. What did you make of Megson as a manager?
Oh, he was a fantastic character. I'll give him that. But again, management similar to Graham Taylor, but maybe a little bit more off the scales with his language, his colourful language, shall I say, that he liked to use. But no, he was brilliant for me, because he was my type of manager. He was old school, but he also trusted you as a football player, and he brought me to West Brom, which I was very grateful for. And he believed, and he saw in me that I could add something different to West Brom, and yeah, no, I thoroughly enjoyed working under Gary.
Yeah, he had a bit of a mixed career after leaving West Brom, didn't he? And may I say, possibly came across as a bit of a joke figure in certain sections of supporters. Do you think that's unfair? And he was actually quite a good manager.
Yeah, I think it's unfair, because he was a really good manager, and you have success at certain clubs, and some clubs you don't have success. That's just the way football goes. It's the same as a player. You get brought for a lot of money, and things don't go and work out how they want to work out, and unfortunately you move on, and that's the way life is in football. So yeah, I think the criticism towards Gary at times was unnecessary. But what he was a winner, and he brought a winningness to West Brom, and he brought he brought a togetherness in the players in the changing room, and that's what we all loved about it, is that we had a real good togetherness as a group of people.
Well, let's fast forward to West Brom in the Premier League, because you were involved in the famous Great Escape of 2005, which is still one of the greatest moments in the Premier League as far as I'm concerned. What was it like being involved in that?
Yeah, it was unreal. I mean, if you could rewind back to the occasion, to the build up to it, it just brings back loads of fantastic memories that you had. Obviously, there was a lot of tension, a lot of emotions, a lot of hard work, a lot of determination, and yeah, for the way it ended, I mean, it was just a relief for the club itself, with the people working behind the scenes who could possibly lose their jobs because of the club getting relegated. Players moving on, like a real good group of players that we could possibly lose. So yeah, I mean, the way that we done it, and just the atmosphere after was just something to remember for the rest of your life.
Yeah, remind me of how it was. Was it the bottom five who were all still in danger of going down on the final day? Was it the bottom five or bottom six?
Bottom five, I think it was. Yeah, so it was the bottom five, but it was the bottom three that just kept changing all the time. I think.
Yeah.
The two teams that were just outside, and us, we were just outside the relegation zone. We were just always flittering between, but they were 2 points ahead of us. So we knew it was really the bottom four that was. It could have been out of any of them. So yeah, it was one of those days where you just didn't want to listen to what was coming from the crowd, because you just needed to focus on what you were trying to do, and that was winning your game, which we did against Portsmouth. But we had no idea what was going on elsewhere. Yeah.
Do you think we'll ever see anything like that happen again? I vaguely recall, I think it was 2011 when Blackpool were in the Premier League. There was a similar kind of relegation battle then, but I don't think we'll ever see a relegation battle as crazy as that on the final day, will we?
No, I don't think so. There's not many teams now, as I say. I think that because the league's expanded so much, the financial side of it, you're always going to see the bottom three down there will always possibly go down. That's just the way it is now at this moment in time. But yeah, I think during my time there was always that. You always had the top 10 that was always away from each other, but then you got 10 downwards was always the battle for fighting for relegation or staying mid-table. So yeah, it was always interesting.
Yeah. Good times, I say. Am I right in saying you nearly moved back to Watford in 2006?
There was conversations, but nothing from my side. I think it was Watford had inquired about me under Adi Boothroyd to bring me back, but West Brom were having none of it. Jamie Peace, the owner, he was a very good owner and very respectful, and he just said no. He said Paul's a key player at West Brom, and that's where it ended. So it never moved any further. But yeah, I never ever got into any discussions where I could possibly be moving back to Watford. I think a majority of it was hyped up in the media, really, with the paper talk.
If the move did happen, would you have fancied a move back down south?
Yeah, it's my club. I'd still love to go back now at any point in the coaching capacity, because I'd love to go back and finish where I started as a player. So yeah, that'd be nice. And it's a great club. It is a great club. It's now it's in a rebuild phase again by the looks of it, and I hope there's stability there. And yeah, I hope the club can move forward. And yeah, one day hopefully I'd like to be a part of that.
Well, you got relegated back to the Championship in 2006 with West Brom, and I need to ask you about that following season in the second tier, because how on earth did that 2006-07 team not get promoted? Because you had, of course, yourself, Kevin Phillips, Zoltan Gera, Jonathan Greening, Curtis Davis, Jason Kumas, John Hartson. I mean, that's got to be one of the best teams to not get promoted, isn't it?
It was that year, and it was devastating. Obviously, we lost in the playoff final to Derby at the time. Obviously, Darren Moore went across from West Brom, so he went over to Derby, and he ended up being on the winning side. But yeah, like you say, it's just football. It's the group of players we had, because obviously Brian Robson left just towards the start of the season when we were doing really well, and unfortunately the board and Brian had come to the conclusion that they were going to part ways. And then obviously Tony Mowbray come in, who again, for me, was one of the best managers I've ever worked for on a footballing level. He changed the style of football. He changed the players' mentality to we can actually do this, and this is the way we play. And yeah, we'd built ourselves up to this team that was scoring loads of goals, creating loads of chances, keeping clean sheets. And you get to the playoff final and you lose 1-0. And all them chances that we'd been finishing off during the season and through the playoffs, it just all dried up in the final. And yeah, you just look back and you go, wow, I don't understand it myself. But then the year after, we lost Jason Kumas, we lost Demancey Kamara. So we lost players that were scoring us goals and important players, but we brought players in like Chris Brunt, James Morrison, and we just seemed to go from strength to strength with a younger generation of players. And it was a fantastic year the following year because we ended up then getting promoted.
Yeah. What are your memories of that side? Because that was some team, wasn't it, who got promoted in 2008?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we classed it as sexy football. I mean, the group of players that were brought together was a footballing team. We played out from the back. We played how football should be played now. When you look at the game and the way it's evolved and the way that people move, West Brom was that. And if people go back and watch them games, they don't understand that we were probably the start of it in a team sense of how we wanted to move the ball and how we played as a team and how we linked and combined. It was just an unreal season to be a part of. And yeah, I mean, goals were coming in from everywhere. All the team chipped in with goals. And even when you got players like Kev Phillips and Zoltan Giroud who come in with 20 plus goals each themselves, it just shows you the quality that we had.
Yeah. I just want to take you back actually a season to Jason Kumas, who you were just talking about there. I always found him to be a really fascinating player because I remember reading a piece about him which said he had the talent of Steven Gerrard, but not the mentality. Would you say that was fair?
With Kumi, you probably would say that is just you just found him like frustrating at times. I think for me, frustrating because I used to play behind him as a left back, and he was always wide left in front of me, and I knew that every time I give him the ball, he would create havoc. He would cause so many problems, and he would score absolutely wonder goals. And even I'd look at him and I'd go, "What are you do? You're too good for this team. You are a Premier League player," and that's what he was, but. I think it's a belief. I think with Kumi, obviously, he was a very quiet person. He kept himself to himself. Like you say, you worked with him on a daily basis on the training pitch, so you knew what qualities he had. But did he have it within himself to go on and further his career to what other people expected of him? I think Jace was he just liked being at that level of what he knew that he was really good at, and he accepted that he wasn't good at the other stuff, which was the off-the-ball stuff or that laid-back mentality. But he was a ridiculous player, and I loved playing alongside him in that West Brom team. He was so good to play with.
How good do you think he could have been then if he did work a bit harder on the training pitch and just in terms of work rate in general?
I think he's definitely like a top 6 Prem team player. You look at like the likes of like the Liverpools. Really? I know he's a massive Liverpool fan. His son now plays for Liverpool as well, so them expectations for me he looks like he's like a type of Tottenham player. He's very elegant on the ball, he can glide past players, he'd suit the Tottenham team with how he played. So yeah, I always looked at him as that type of player, but then he ended up signing for Wigan, and that's no disrespect to Wigan because they had good players at the time, but I just didn't feel that was his level or his standard of player where he was going.
Yeah. Strange career, isn't it? Really strange career, really. Let's talk about your departure from West Brom then, because you left them to go to Bolton in 2009, 2010. Why did that come about?
I think it was just time to move on. I'd had 7 years there as a player. A lot of players had come and gone through the door, players that I had real close relationships with, especially Kevin Phillips. I found that one tough when he left. Zoltan then left. I ended up leaving. Curtis Davis obviously ended up leaving. So yeah, we had big players that had left the football club. So I could see a change. Di Matteo had come through the door, and I wanted to stay in the Premier League. I wanted to make the most of playing as high as I could for as long as I could. And obviously, I just remember under Brian Robson when he said to me that I should have been an England player under like the understudy of Ashley Cole, and for me that was my biggest ambition, was to try and reach the England squad. But I knew that I was never going to do that in the Championship playing with West Brom, so I knew I needed to go and change the way I was where I was playing, and Bolton come in because obviously Gary Megson was the manager again. So he knew what type of player I was. He knew where I'd the levels that he'd got me to, and then where I'd kicked on to under Brian and under Tony. So yeah, I think the club decided that it was a loan move to start with, and then in January, then it became a permanent with Bolton, and I ended up having 3 years at Bolton.
Yeah, and Owen Coyle was in charge there at the time. You fell out of favour under him. Why was that?
Maybe I wasn't Owen's type of player. Character clash, maybe a little bit, is that I didn't quite take to the old laughy, jokey style of the level that he was managing at, and that, again, that's not being disrespectful. That's just me trying to be as professional as I can, and I probably didn't look at the way that Owen was that character. That's probably why he got the best out of himself, was the way that he acted and the way that he did things. I just couldn't quite get my head around it, and also my family never moved up to Bolton. They stayed in the Midlands, so yeah, and I'd had a young family at the time. I was having my fourth child. My wife was heavily pregnant, and she was driving up and down the M6 coming to Bolton and coming to stay over in like our rental that we'd got in Knutsford. But it just didn't feel right, and I just felt I just needed a change, and I needed to be back closer to home.
Yeah, yeah. What was it like being at Bolton? Because if my memory serves me correctly, there was a lot of speculation about the financial future of the club. So was that quite distracting as a player?
It wasn't quite distracting for a player because I think a club like Bolton was always going to get sorted. It was always run properly by Phil Gardside and Davis, the main owners, and they sort of had real good control over it. But again, we had brought in players who would say financial fair play now with the wages that they were on would push the club into them situations. So yeah, we did. We signed a lot of players like Martin Petrov and big players that night. Nigel Ryakoka, who came in as well, and they would have been earning real good money. So maybe the club couldn't survive with them players being on them wages, knowing the position we were in, and possibly going down to the Championship. So yeah, I think it was time for a lot of senior players to then move on and look for different careers. So yeah, mine ended up doing that, like a lot of the other players, but unfortunately for Bolton, they ended up getting relegated back down to the Championship.
Yeah, they did. And when you're out of the team at Bolton, you briefly had a stint playing under Neil Warnock on loan at Leeds. How was it working with old Neil?
That was lively, very lively. That was an eye opener to see what Neil's all about and what he does, and you can see why he's had so much great success at all the football clubs he's been at. Is because he motivates. He tells you as it is. There's no black or white with him. It's straight. There you go. You're having that. Bosh. So yeah, for me again, it was a great insight to working with a manager that has his own outlook on being a manager and the way that he does things. So yeah, the 10 games that I had there, I mean, I loved it at Leeds. It was the support is phenomenal. The crowd, the travelling numbers, they get right behind you, and the quality of players that I played with. It was a good 10 games to be involved in.
Yeah. Well, you moved to Birmingham in 2012. You were initially only given a 1 month contract, and then another 1 month contract, and then a 2 month, which is it's just quite the audition period, really, isn't it? So it seems quite mad, really, that you had that start and then went on to play for them for 6 seasons and left as a massive fan favourite.
Yeah, I know. I think when you go into teams like West Birmingham and the clubs that I've been to, you have to win the fans over. So obviously I'd played for West Brom, so there's no real rivalry between West Brom and Birmingham. But for me, it was when I go in there, I've got to prove my worth. Yes, I was 33 at the time. I'd been out of contract for about 3 months, so I was training by myself and trying to get my body up to a level where I knew I could cope again with Championship football. Lee Clark gave me the phone call because they'd had a lot of defensive injuries. So he just said, look, I want you to come in, I want to have a look at you. And it just went from there, and I'm truly grateful for Lee for giving me the phone call and bringing me in. But yeah, it's just mad when you think that I was actually week to week to start with. It wasn't month to month. It was like a first week, then it was another week, then you got to the end of the month, and then they went, right, we'll give you 1 month now, So I did that then for 4 months continuous until I'd signed till the end of the season, and then I got years after that. So, but that just shows my mentality, and I'm not afraid to go in and prove a point. And yeah, I was a winner, and I wanted to win people over, and yeah, I won a lot of people over at Birmingham. But I also, yeah, I still haven't won a few people over from Birmingham because of my situation with Damon Johnson when I was playing there as a player. So, but that's football. People have their opinions, and they see it from a different perspective, and that's how they want to look at it. And then that's fine. I get it.
Yeah, you mentioned the Johnson stuff. That was after a heavy tackle, wasn't it? What's been said about that since? Have you spoken to Johnson about that incident?
Yeah, I spoke to John T. I went in straight away to see him in the dressing room after the game, and I apologised, and there was no malice in it. It was just one of those things where we were both going for the ball, and he didn't want to listen. So which I totally get, because he was angry at the time. He was angry that he was going to be out injured, and I totally respect that. But my respect for the player that Damien was, and the captains that we were, I wanted to show that I wanted to apologise for it, and I didn't mean any harm to him, and I didn't mean it in any way of that I was out to do him, which I wasn't, because I'm not that type of player. And yeah, we've spoke since. He's working at Blackburn with the first team, and we've seen each other 2 seasons now when we've met. And he's been good as gold, and we've had good chats, and it's great to see the job that he's doing at Blackburn with the younger players, and the amount of kids that are coming through the system are all down to Damien with his work there.
Yeah, definitely. Not going to disagree with you on that. You mentioned that Lee Clark was the manager at Birmingham at the time, and he was a bit of a character, wasn't he?
Oh, he's a great character, he was. I've got a funny story about Lee, to be fair to him. Well, I've got a few, but the one that stands out was when we played Burnley at home at St Andrews, and we ended up drawing the game 3-3, where Federico Makeda scored a 93rd minute equaliser. And we're all obviously celebrating on the pitch, and we've turned round and we've seen Lee Clark running up the touchline, and then all of a sudden he starts kicking the hoardings, going mental, and we're looking at him going, what's the gaffer doing? He's put his foot through the hoardings. So the game's finished 3-3. We've got in the dressing room after the game, and like he's going mad. He's like, yeah, Brazin, great point, lads, really good point in the end. And we're like, gaffer, well, we just want to know what were you thinking running up and down the touchline, and like you just smashed the hell out of the hoardings and you put your foot through it. And he went, I'm not bothered about the hoardings, I'm more worried about my new trainers I brought and the scratches I've put on them. So it was just like, you're sitting there going, what a guy. But that's the type of passion that Lee had. He was a winner, and like you could just look at his career with what he's achieved over his career. He was a leader, he was a winner, and people don't understand that when you're a manager, the pressure that is on you as a manager to deliver results and to move up the leagues and to get promoted. There's so much pressure to be on the manager, and he just showed his emotions was his excitement in the way that he acted, and yeah, he cared and he wanted to do really well for Birmingham.
Yeah, and we saw those emotions with that Paul Caddis goal, which kept Birmingham up in the last minute. For me, one of the greatest moments in Championship history, purely for the limbs alone in the away end when that goal went in. You were on the pitch at the time. How was that moment?
That was another moment that stands out in your career of being right up there with the best. I mean, it's 2-0 down away at Bolton, getting relegated to possibly League One. The club, with the way that the club was, administration, liquidation, no one ever knew. No one ever will know the full story of where that situation could have gone. And just to fight back, and the character again of the team spirit and the mentality of the players to show that when you wear that shirt with pride and passion, and the fans, the numbers when they turn out and they support you, and the crowd we took to Bolton on that day was, I think it was about 3,000 Birmingham fans we took up there. And they just sang, when they sing "Keep Right On," it's the best song that you'll hear all in around football grounds, at home and away. It just echoes, and it means something. And as a player, when you hear that, you get goosebumps, and you get, this is why I play for Birmingham City Football Club. And we knew we had to up our game, and we knew we had to fight, and we had to come back. And yeah, I mean, that Paul Caddis 94 minute equaliser,
yeah.
you just couldn't write it. And I mean, yeah, just at the end, the celebrations again. Even Lee Clark running into the crowd. You're going, where are you going? What are you doing? But it's just again the pure emotions of what football's all about and what it does to you. But yeah, it was an unbelievable day. But again, a club like Birmingham status should never be in. They should never be at them in them positions. They're a team that should be fighting, trying to win promotions back to the Premier League because of the stature of the club and the way it was before in previous times. And yeah, it's sad to see it over the years, especially when I was there as a coach as well. It's just always teetered on relegation. And I'm hoping now with the Rooney area that it picks up and it changes and the club looks forward to going for promotion.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about that very shortly. I wanted to fast forward to Gary Rowett at Birmingham, who did a great job by all accounts, guiding them to 2 top half finishes, had them in 7th in the Championship in his 3rd season in charge before he was infamously sacked. Possibly the most bizarre sacking in Championship history. What do you remember from that whole saga? First of all, how did you find out about the news?
The news we got told in the morning. So we got brought in on the Wednesday. It was our day off, and we got told we had a meeting. So we all come in on our day off, all waiting in the meeting room. And the director of football, the club secretary, she was in the room and she said, "Look, we got to wait. The manager's coming in. He wants to speak to you all." So we're all sitting there going, "What's going on?" We just beat Ipswich the night before, the Tuesday night. We beat them 2-1 at home. So as far as we knew, there was nothing really going on apart from, is the manager going to another club that we don't know about? So yeah, Gary then walks through the door and he just said to us, we all sat down, and he just said, "Look lads, I just want to let you know that I've been sacked." So the room just goes quiet and in shock. "You what? What are you talking about, Gaffer? You've just been sacked. We're like 7th in the league. What? Why have you been sacked?" He said, "The owners have sacked me. I can't give you any more details on that." But yeah, it's there's a new manager coming in, and we didn't have a clue. I don't think Gary was allowed to tell us who the new manager was at the time. But for us, it was like, wow, has this really just happened? So yeah, and then obviously Gianfranco Zola come in through the door, and yeah, all that hard work that Gary had put in, and the players and the style of football that we were playing. I think the owners had made the decision that they wanted a new style of football and an attacking style of football. They wanted to take the club forward in trying to win promotion, playing a totally different style. So yeah, that was the decision made, and yeah, we had to sort of try and get our heads around it, but try and move forward as quick as possible, knowing that Gianfranco was coming in to take the team.
Yeah, and it didn't go very well, did it? 2 wins in 24 games. Why did it go so diabolically wrong under Zola?
Probably, I think he tried to change it too much too quickly. Maybe listening to too many people. And don't get me wrong, Gianfranco, I mean, what an unbelievable guy he was as well. He was such a genuine, nice guy. And you could sit and talk to him for hours about football, and he would give you every detail, and he'll talk through every formation on how he wanted it to work and how he wanted it to play. And I think he struggled with the balance of the squad. I think that's really where it sort of had its toll in the end. And in January, he tried to change that, but then we still had the old players that were there. And it was that balance. We could never find it out. And we all know in football is when confidence is low, when results are not going your way, it's a tough place to be in. And it's hard to try and find and get them results that you need, because other teams then that you come up against will know that we're mentally struggling, and we're fragile at the moment, and teams would hit us early, and early goals would be conceded or silly goals would be conceded, and yeah, you could totally see the mindset change as soon as we conceded the goal. We totally went the opposite way instead of fighting and coming out and having another right go for it. So yeah, I found it really tough for Gianfranco, just because in the fact is he was just such a great guy, but also it was hard footsteps to follow in what Gary Rowett had installed in the players and the team at the time.
Yeah, Well, of course, this season we've seen Birmingham make a very similar move to the whole Rowett Zola thing with John Eustace when they're in the playoffs getting sacked and bringing in Wayne Rooney. What did you think of that when they made that move?
Brave. Thought it was very brave at the time when they done it. But you've got to give credit to John for what he did there. But you also got to look at his record. And I think some players will sit on the fence and some fans will sit on the fence with it, is that their record before the 2 wins before John left were not very good. And he was on a bit of a lull with the results there. And then obviously Wayne's come in, and it's only he's had five games and he's drawn 1, lost 4. So it doesn't look good. But again, this is a transitional period for Wayne. He's getting to understand the players. He's also getting close to January, where he can have his input on how he wants the team to look and how he wants the team to play. So he's got to be given time. The owners are fully backing him. They're new owners who believe that they can take the club forward. So you've got to give them respect, and you've got to give them the support that they need, and the fans as well. I know it's hard for fans to accept at the moment, but they've got to get right behind Wayne. And as soon as that first win comes, then hopefully there's a weight taken off the shoulders of everyone, knowing that they can do it and they can move forward and they can start winning a lot more games.
Yeah. Well, after retiring, you became the lead professional development coach at Birmingham, which meant you were overseeing the under-18s. So I assume you were coaching a young lad called Jude Bellingham. Was he quite handy?
He was quite handy at the time, even at the age of 15. I was lead under 18s my second year. My first year I was assistant under 23s manager with under Richard Bill. And that's when we first started working with Jude individually and also with the team, because obviously we were building him up as a player to get him to the levels that we wanted him to get to under 21s football, and then we were then building him from then on to go into, hopefully, which was, as we've seen, the men's football of Birmingham, which he very easily done for such a young age. But what an incredible talent. I mean, the mindset of the player is the best I've ever seen from such a young lad. His commitment, his dedication, his willing to learn, his understanding of the game as well at such a young age, it's frightening. I don't think I'll ever witness anyone that will ever have that in such a young player. What was he, 15 at the time he was, and he was phenomenal. But the ability, obviously he was still understanding his body because he wasn't quite there with his strength. His balance was unbelievable with both feet. He was very good. Technically we were working on, like you say, his touches, his heading, his timing of his runs into the box. And gradually, as you've seen, his career's gone on now to where he's at now. He just looks the complete package, and he's a leader. He's got the winning mentality to lead, and he will be a captain one day. He will be the captain of possibly Real Madrid if he stays there for a long time. But I definitely see him as captain of England one day because he has that mindset and he has that mentality to lead from the front. Yeah,
still strange to think that he's now at Real Madrid, arguably the best player in the world, and a matter of just 4 seasons ago, he was playing in the Championship. It just still blows my mind, really, that we were witnessing what we were. Yeah, really is. Well, you were, until very recently, a coach at Millwall, weren't you? You literally left just over a week or two ago, wasn't it? Did Gary Rowett's departure come as a shock?
Yeah, Gary's was, because we never knew nothing about it. Obviously, you never know what goes on behind the scenes. As a coach, you sort of planning for games, and it was international break. We had Hull at home on the Saturday in the 2-2 draw. We then were given a few days off just to go and spend time with families. Obviously, I'm in the Midlands, and I was travelling back and forth to London and staying down at times while working at Millwall. And Gary was the same. He was from the Midlands. And I think the time being away from the family, especially his youngest, I think it was getting to him. And there is in times in football where pressure away from your family takes its toll. And you miss out on them times, like I missed out with my time with my boys, especially my 2 youngest who are now 12 and 14. You don't realise, because you're so ingrained in your job with what you're trying to do and how you're trying to make the team work, and how you're trying to help individual players, you forget about your own life and your own family time. So yeah, the Gary situation was out the blue, but you could understand it. You could understand that he was missing his family. But you've also got to appreciate what a great job he's done at Millwall over the 4 years he's there, and the stability that he's given the team, and the narrow misses that we missed out on playoffs, especially last year. I think that was the hardest one, missing out to Blackburn, and losing that last game 4-3 and missing out. It hits you hard in football with them situations, knowing that it was probably the best year to get promoted, especially when you look at the playoff final between Coventry and Luton. You look at that and you were going, we were probably better than them two teams, but they managed to get in there through hard work and determination, and we just missed out on losing silly games when we shouldn't have lost silly games.
Yeah. Well, was your departure from Millwall because of Rowett leaving?
My departure was amicable. No, nothing to do with Gary. Obviously, the new manager, Joe Edwards, had come in with Andy Myers as his assistant. And the club knew that I wasn't with my family. They knew that I was travelling. They also knew that I was staying down and I wasn't around my family. But that wasn't their excuse. For me, it was the timing. I could walk away from Millwall with my head held high. The nearly 3 years there that I'd achieved a lot. I'd worked with some incredible people behind the scenes, staff and players, helping not only like individuals that I thoroughly enjoyed working with on the grass separately, but also the team ethos, and also learning as off Gary what it's like to be a manager and where I want to be in the future of hopefully managing one day. That's my goal, is to be given an opportunity to build my own team and have my own philosophy, working on a daily basis and creating that atmosphere like I had as a player, but also picking stuff off at every manager that I've worked under. So yeah, no, mine was amicably done, and I'm very grateful for having my time at Millwall and the people that I worked with. So no, I can walk away knowing that I had some real great moments there, and no, I look back with real fond memories, and still will keep in touch and go and watch the games when I can.
Yeah. How do you think Joe Edwards will do at Millwall? Because it's a very talented squad there, isn't it?
It is a very talented squad, and before Joe took over, obviously we had a tough 4 games with Adam Barrett and myself. It was Preston away, it was Blackburn at home on the Tuesday, then we had Watford away, then we had Southampton at home. So with the 4 games, it was a great challenge, but 4 games that I really enjoyed, and it brought the best out of me of where I wanted to get to. And then Joe's obviously come in with Sheffield Wednesday. A lot easier game to come into, knowing that they're bottom of the league and they've got the worst record for conceding goals. But I think, again, it's going to take time. He's a young manager. He'll have his own way of thinking, his own way of how he wants the team to play. Whether he keeps the same squad or whether he brings in a more youthful players from the Premier League because he's got them links from the clubs that he's worked at. Who knows? But yeah, I wish him well. I hope it all goes well for him, because it's a great club, Millwall. It's a really good club, and it's a great club just because of the people that work behind the scenes there, and keep the club running the way that they keep it running.
Yeah, as we say, this Millwall squad is very talented. I mean, for me, definitely capable of getting in the top 6. And I could ask you about loads of players there, but I wanted to hear more about one in particular, and that's Romain Essa, who's an 18-year-old who's featured in most games for Millwall this season, very highly rated down at the Den. Just how good a player are we talking about here?
Yeah, Romain could be top. He could be a very, very good player. The thing with Romain is he's in that in-between period, because what people have also got to understand is that the Championship's probably the hardest it's ever been with the teams that are in there. So Romain's got to understand that out of possession stuff. So when he hasn't got the ball, it's being in the right positions, making sure he's helping his team out, and he's putting in the effort that he's doing his best for the team when they haven't got the ball. But when he's got the ball, my gosh, what a player he's going to be. He's got great composure. He's got great vision. He's got an eye for a goal if he's given the opportunity in and around the box. He can beat players with ease. Again, I'd like to see him working with his right foot. He loves coming in on his left foot because he's strong left-footed, but he's got the ability to go on the outside as well. So I'd like to see him work on that side, because I know he can do it, but obviously naturally you always tend to come back in on your left foot. But no, I have real high hopes with Romain, especially working with him closely over the last year or so. But he's a fantastic lad, but he just needs to understand and work on the out of possession stuff, which will make him an even better player.
What next for you as a coach then, Paul? Of course, you said that you wanted to go into management. If that doesn't come about and Gary Rowett gets another job somewhere, will you follow him as a coach? What's going to happen next?
Who knows? Who knows where football takes you? At the moment, I'm just enjoying my break, being with the family, watching my boys play football. I've even come out of retirement and joined a Saturday League team with my lad who he plays for. So no, I'm going to get the boots back on and get myself running around again, which is lovely. I'm not going to say the team because I don't want to give it away too much. But for me, I don't mind where I love the development side of it. I've always loved developing players. I've always liked helping the younger generation understand not only the game on the pitch, but off it as well. Like the mindset and the mentality of it is, it's a tough world out there. It's a tough industry, football. So you've got to be mentally strong and you've got to be mentally prepared for rejection. And that's the hardest thing with football is we see a lot of young lads who come out the game because they've been told that they're not going to get a contract. They're not going to go on any further with this football team, and that's the hardest thing for a player to take because they've been there for so long. So it's about giving them confidence and giving them the guidance that they need. So yeah, I love the development side of it, but I also like the assistant manager's role, like having that responsibility and working with first team players on a daily basis, and again you also get the opportunity to work with individual senior players in that as well. So yeah. For me, it's about building up your reputation as a coach and your CV to trying to get to the levels of knowing that one day you could become that all-rounded manager.
I want to know more about you getting your boots back on. What kind of level are we talking here? Is it semi-pro? Is it just Sunday League or?
No, Saturday League team. So it's
Saturday League,
semi-pro. So a bit of fun. Just training on a Wednesday night and then getting the boots back on the Saturday. So no, I'm looking forward to it. Especially because I get the opportunity to play with one of my sons, and I think that's everyone's goal in life is, especially being an ex-footballer, is that you want to enjoy the moments where you get time with your lads, and I get the opportunity to train with one of my sons on a Wednesday and then play on the same team as his a Saturday. So no, I'm looking forward to it.
Have you not played any games yet? You still?
No games yet. I'm quite fit anyway because I like my running, so I've just been running. I do a lot of running. Anyway, so since I've retired, I've always, just from a mental health side of it, for me it's about staying positive and staying focused and trying to get rid of the negativity. Yeah, so I like to keep myself fit, but no, I've not played a competitive game since I retired, 2019.
Wow. Well, how about that? Are you still going to be picking up as many yellow cards as you did when you were a player?
I probably won't get as close to them players nowadays. I think I'll just I'll try and be calm. Especially I don't want to give my son any bad habits.
Yeah, nice one, Paul. Top man, really appreciate you taking the time to chat with us today, mate.
No worries, Ryan. My pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
This has been the Second Tier Podcast. I've been Ryan Dilks. We'll be back again on Thursday, and a big thank you for listening.